They thought she was just another widow on a quiet coastal road in Alabama, soft-spoken, polite, and always seen feeding seagulls behind the bait shop. But at 4:17 a.m. on October 11th, Marissa Cole disappeared without a trace. The only thing she left behind was an abandoned fishing boat and a missing $6.2 million that belonged to one of the most violent criminal syndicates in the southeastern U.S. To this day, neither law enforcement nor the cartel knows exactly how she pulled it off, but the clues point to something far deeper than anyone expected. Before we dive into today's shocking case, don't forget to subscribe to Untold Crime Vaults. Hit that like button and tell us in the comments what country or state you're watching from. Your support helps us uncover stories that others try to bury. Now, let's begin. Marissa Cole was 42 years old, recently widowed, and lived alone in a small, weather-worn house overlooking the Gulf of Mexico in Port Eden, Alabama, a town where everyone knew everyone else, and nothing ever really happened. She spent most of her days managing a modest fish supply store, chatting with shrimp boat crews, and caring for her elderly neighbor. Most saw her as sweet, quiet, and a little bit lonely. But behind her wire-rimmed glasses and windbreaker jackets was a woman who knew how to dismantle surveillance drones in under 2 minutes. Because Marissa wasn't just a small-town shopkeeper. She was a former NSA counterintelligence analyst. This story doesn't begin with a robbery. It begins with a storm. 2 years before she vanished, a hurricane battered the Alabama coast. Marissa had just buried her husband, lost half her store inventory, and was knee-deep in insurance claims when she found something that would change her life forever. While cleaning up storm debris near the marsh behind her home, she spotted a boat half submerged in the mud. No registration, no markings. No one claiming it. It wasn't local, and the cargo inside wasn't fishing gear. Wrapped tightly in plastic and hidden beneath floorboards, Marissa found tightly bundled stacks of U.S. currency, over $300,000 in marked bills. She also found a flash drive labeled only with a red skull symbol and a folder shipping manifest that listed coordinates, names, and routes. Marissa didn't turn it in. She did what her training taught her. She started investigating. What Marissa found would shake her to her core. The manifest detailed shipments of synthetic opioids moving between the Gulf Coast and South Florida using forgotten fishing routes. The crew names were coded aliases, but Marissa cracked them and realized they were all tied to a criminal outfit known as La Cuna Blanca, a rising Gulf cartel that had quietly overtaken cocaine and fentanyl operations across the southeastern U.S. The boat she found was a mistake. It had likely been dumped during the storm when one of their own had to ditch it to avoid being caught by the Coast Guard. Over the next 6 months, Marissa pieced together their logistics network. Using aerial drone mapping software and public shipping records, she identified 4 key drop points, one of which was a private marina just 3 miles from her store. They were using Port Eden, her town, her coastline, and no one had a clue. Maybe it was grief. Maybe it was trauma from a career that had ended badly. Maybe it was just the terrifying knowledge that people at the federal level were compromised. But Marissa didn't report the discovery. Instead, she buried the money and hard drive deep in her backyard and quietly began preparing something much bigger than a tip-off. She wasn't going to warn the cartel they were being watched. She was going to rob them. It wasn't until the spring of the following year that Marissa realized she wasn't alone. While doing a quiet surveillance check on a drop point near Blackwater Bay, she discovered signs of someone else tracking the same cartel routes. Footprints, wire cuttings, a small camouflage wildlife camera buried in the brush, and a tag labeled property of USCG. She traced the equipment to Lieutenant Tasha Brennan, a former U.S. Coast Guard intelligence officer who had gone missing 6 months prior. The trail was cold, and Brennan's name had been quietly erased from public records. No news reports, no missing persons case. But Marissa's analysis showed that Brennan had been investigating the same cartel routes and had likely disappeared because of it. It only made Marissa more determined. Marissa began staging what she would later call Operation White Coral. Over the course of 14 months, she rented a second small fishing vessel under a fake name, modified it with insulated hull panels and a hidden underdeck compartment, created a fake shell company that received fishing subsidies, used her NSA knowledge to hack and reprogram surveillance buoys in key drop zones, monitored cartel comms traffic using old signal sniffers reworked from ham radios. Every step of her plan was built on deception, not just to steal money, but to make sure no one would believe she had done it alone, or even done it at all. What Marissa didn't know, until it was almost too late, was that someone on the cartel's side had begun suspecting her. A man named Dante Vega, a dockhand who worked at the Port Eden Marina, had recently been promoted by the cartel after proving his loyalty in a Florida smuggling run. He was instructed to monitor unusual activity near the northern docks, and he noticed something odd. Marissa's boat had no fish smell. She never unloaded ice bins, and she only left at night during storms. Dante began digging and discovered she had once worked for the government. Instead of reporting her immediately, he made a mistake. He followed her on the night of September 29th. 3 weeks before her disappearance, Marissa left her house at 11:12 p.m. and headed for a dry dock near River Point Cove. She was moving a decoy cash container to test whether her new smuggling route could be tracked. She never saw Dante watching from the bridge above. He followed her for nearly 2 miles down unlit dirt roads and nearly caught her loading the decoy into her secret boat hull. But noise behind him changed everything. A patrol vehicle. Not police, cartel security. They weren't there for Marissa. They were there for him. The cartel didn't want Dante watching. They already had their suspicions and didn't trust anyone to act alone. Dante was taken that night, and what happened to him is unknown. But it bought Marissa just enough time to finish her plan. According to tracking data collected later from weather buoys and Coast Watch logs, Marissa's final known location was 7 miles off the coast of Port Eden, near a shipping lane marked restricted. The boat was found hours later, engine running, lights off, and nothing inside except for a pair of rubber gloves, a soaking wet satellite phone with the SIM removed, and $5,000 in unmarked bills stuffed inside the anchor compartment. Marissa was gone, so was $6.2 million, and 3 sealed containers filled with ledger books, flash drives, and blackmail material connected to judges, sheriffs, and a sitting congressman. At first, no one in Port Eden thought anything of Marissa's disappearance. She had no close friends, no immediate family, and no history of erratic behavior. The authorities filed a basic missing persons report, assuming she had gone out fishing and capsized during a storm. But something about the abandoned boat didn't sit right with Officer Lyle Hartman. the quiet sheriff who patrolled the sleepy coastal stretch where Marissa lived. Hartman had seen plenty of boating accidents in his 22 years on the job, but none where the boat returned to shore without the person. The engine was still running. The keys were in the ignition. The GPS tracker had been physically ripped out and tossed overboard. And strangest of all, the vessel had been meticulously cleaned, except for a single footprint on the inside of the hull. A footprint far too small to belong to a man. As rumors began to swirl in town, a pair of men showed up asking questions. They claimed to be from the U.S. Coast Guard, but neither had badges, and both drove a black SUV with no plates. They visited Marissa's house, took nothing, and left behind a very clear message for anyone watching. Don't ask questions. That same week, Officer Hartman was called to investigate a break-in at a fish processing warehouse down at Pine Hook Docks, the same location Marissa had been spotted several times before her disappearance. The warehouse belonged to a company registered to a holding firm in Panama, but nobody knew who actually owned it. The only thing missing? A surveillance DVR, ripped straight from a wall. That's when Hartman started to connect the dots. A dockhand named Silas reported something that would change the entire case. He said he saw Marissa after the police declared her missing. It was exactly 9 days after her boat was found. Around 3:45 a.m., during a foggy early morning supply run, Silas claimed he saw a woman wearing a red hoodie and carrying a duffel bag boarding a speedboat near the Calhoun Inlet. She never looked directly at him, but he remembered her limp, subtle, but noticeable. Marissa had twisted her knee during a dock slip a few months earlier. Silas thought nothing of it until he saw her face on a flyer taped to the bait shop cooler. By the time Hartman followed up on a report, the speedboat had vanished, and so had Silas. He quit his job that night, left his apartment unlocked, and drove out of town. His vehicle was found abandoned near a Greyhound station 3 states away. There were no signs of a struggle, just fear. Nearly 4 weeks after Marissa's disappearance, a brown envelope arrived at the Mobile Herald, a regional news outlet based about 60 miles from Port Eden. There was no return address. Inside were 2 USB flash drives, photocopies of shipping manifests, and a note that simply read, "If I disappear, make sure the right people go down with me. MC." The contents of the drive stunned even the most seasoned investigative reporters. Names of judges, sheriffs, port inspectors, all tied to illegal shipments and cash drops orchestrated by La Cuna Blanca, the Gulf Coast Cartel. But more disturbing than the files were the timestamps. Marissa had gathered this data over 18 months, compiling everything into a massive expose and then vanished before releasing it. The Mobile Herald went public with the story, but it was too late. The story was pulled within hours of going live. Their servers were seized by federal agents citing national security concerns. No one has seen those drives since. The FBI's regional office issued a brief statement in response to public pressure, calling Marissa a person of interest in an ongoing investigation. They refused to clarify whether she was being sought as a suspect, a witness, or a victim. But a former intelligence contact who asked not to be named confirmed something chilling. Marissa Cole was listed as black status in interagency databases. That means she either knows something she shouldn't or she's dead. There's no in-between. To understand why the FBI won't talk and why the cartel wanted her erased, we need to go back to 2011. Before the quiet fishing town and the bait shop, Marissa Cole was a rising star at the NSA's Cyber Operations Division. She specialized in data triangulation, specifically the tracking of covert finance transactions through cryptocurrency and offshore banks. In 2014, she flagged a string of strange transfers between a Venezuelan energy firm and a network of southern U.S. transport companies. Her report was suppressed. 2 months later, her access credentials were revoked, and she was placed on administrative leave. The official reason, mishandling classified data. But according to leaked emails found years later in a separate corruption probe, Marissa had been deliberately shut down after uncovering links between DEA agents and cartel-backed import firms. She was blackballed, forced out of the intelligence world, and given a final warning in the form of a home break-in that left no evidence, except for one fingerprint that somehow matched her own. Marissa knew the rules: stay silent or disappear. She chose something else. Despite the missing cartel cash, no charges were ever filed, no official complaints, no missing funds alert, no Interpol red notices. Why? Because La Cuna Blanca couldn't admit they'd been robbed. Not of money, but of information. Sources claim the real value of what Marissa stole wasn't the $6.2 million. It was a drive known only by cartel insiders as the Coral Book, a master ledger detailing every politician, customs officer, and law enforcement agent on their payroll from Texas to Florida Panhandle. The woman they thought was just a grieving widow had outmaneuvered their top operatives, disappeared without a trace, and set fire to the very foundation of their American operations. One final detail came to light 6 months after Marissa's vanishing, from a GoPro camera lost at sea. A local diver retrieved a waterproof camera tangled in lobster traps 80 feet below the surface. The footage was grainy but intact. What it showed was Marissa, clear as day, piloting a custom-modified underwater drone, carrying seal black containers toward a deep-water freighter anchored offshore. The freighter had no visible name, no flag, no registration. Satellite records later confirmed it had been anchored there for only 11 minutes before vanishing from radar. And just like that, Marissa Cole was gone, beneath the waves, into myth. The mysterious vessel that collected Marissa's underwater payload left no digital fingerprint behind. It had no recorded origin port, no visible AIS tracking signal, and no record in any international shipping database. But satellite data from an independent maritime tracking site, saved by a group of amateur ship watchers, captured a brief visual of the freighter before it vanished. The logo on its side had been painted over, but not perfectly. Beneath the peeling black paint was a faded emblem of Astroline Maritime, a Greek shipping company that had been dissolved years earlier following allegations of smuggling and illegal arms transport. Someone had resurrected a ghost ship, and Marissa had used it as her final escape route. A new theory began to emerge among former intelligence agents and cartel watchers. Marissa hadn't just fled with cartel cash. She had brokered it. Her meticulous gathering of intel, shipping manifests, blackmail files, and encrypted account data was never just about justice or revenge. It was about leverage. People like Marissa didn't vanish into retirement. They vanished into power. The freighter, some believe, was headed not to Central America or Europe, but to Sri Lanka, where a small group of ex-intelligence mercenaries operate black market data havens, digital fortresses for those who trade secrets instead of stocks. If true, It would mean Marissa Cole had effectively become untouchable, backed by people who deal in protection, data laundering, and regime destabilization, far beyond cartel reach or FBI jurisdiction. But the price of becoming untouchable is never paid in dollars. It's paid in silence. One man didn't believe Marissa had made it out. His name was Victor Ames, a former Navy radio technician who had worked with her briefly in Norfolk during the late 2000s. He claimed they had shared encrypted correspondence a year before her disappearance, and that she had warned him something big was coming. After she vanished, Victor began his own investigation. He traced satellite paths, interviewed shrimp boat captains, and even bribed 2 employees at the Port Eden Harbor office for deleted security footage. What he found confirmed what he feared. Marissa wasn't the first to try escaping the cartel, but she was the only one who had succeeded. Between 2016 and 2021, for former military or intelligence personnel, had moved to coastal Alabama and vanished under suspicious circumstances. All had access to maritime navigation systems. All had filed name changes shortly before their disappearances. 2 were never seen again. One was found washed up 80 miles away, missing fingers, jaw shattered, teeth removed. The 4th, a woman named Elise Ramirez, a former Army cryptographic tech, left behind a journal that would never make the news, but eventually leaked through a whistleblower group called Silent Vault. In it, Elise wrote, "They know we know. They don't kill you quickly anymore. They erase you. No funeral. No headlines. Just silence and another vacant dock." It was dated 2 months before Marissa's escape. Inside cartel circles, Marissa Cole is referred to only as La Desaparecida, the disappeared. Speaking her name aloud is considered bad luck. Some say she made a deal with federal ghosts. Others believe she joined a rival syndicate with more money and better reach. But most believe something far worse, that she has the files and intends to use them. One high-ranking La Cuna Blanca enforcer was overheard in a wiretap saying, "She doesn't need bullets. She has passwords. That's all it takes." The files Marissa vanished with, if released, could collapse banking channels used by more than just the cartel. They could expose entire fronts used by intelligence agencies, arms dealers, and corrupt foreign diplomats laundering money through fishing exports and fuel trade. Which is why no one will confirm she exists, and no one will dare say she's dead. In 2024, a woman named Leona Briggs was arrested in Pensacola for attempting to intercept a money drop she believed was linked to La Cuna Blanca. She had constructed a fake cargo manifest, hacked a local customs terminal, and installed covert cameras at a container depot. What she didn't know was that the depot had already been compromised by the cartel. When officers raided her motel room, they found not just hacking tools and bank account data, but a 20-page printed article about Marissa Cole. Leona believed she had found a blueprint for robbing the cartel and surviving. She was wrong. She's now serving 25 years in a federal penitentiary under a sealed case name. What most people don't know is that Marissa had a son, Nathan Cole, 19 years old at the time of her disappearance. He was living in Atlanta, studying computer engineering, and had been estranged from his mother for nearly 4 years. He refused to speak to media outlets, ignored reporters, and moved to Oregon shortly after the story broke. But one curious message appeared on a private forum 3 months later, under the username Red Herring 21. "If you knew what she knew, you'd vanish too. But she's not gone. She's working." Investigators couldn't trace the account, but a digital analyst familiar with NSA forums confirmed the phrasing and syntax were consistent with Marissa's own written style, possibly written by someone who had studied her closely, possibly her son. Nearly 1 year to the day after her disappearance, a low-bandwidth satellite ping was detected off the coast of Morocco. It was encrypted short-range and bounced through 6 relays before vanishing. The message, decrypted by former naval signal officers, contained only 3 words. Still watching. M. The signal came from open waters. No ships were registered in the area. No aircraft, no submersibles. Just ocean. And just like that, she was gone again. After that encrypted message pinged off the Moroccan coast, one thing became crystal clear to those who were paying attention. Marissa Cole wasn't just alive. She was still playing the game. The message was a warning. Short, surgical, and intentional. For the cartel, it meant she could still leak everything. For the FBI, it meant someone had evaded every trace protocol they had. And for the world of underground intelligence, it meant something else entirely. Marissa was still active. That's when whispers of Operation Coldwater began surfacing. An off-the-books task force designed to find her, contain the threat, and if necessary, neutralize it. Because the truth was this. If Marissa Cole ever decided to go public, it wouldn't just collapse a drug empire. It could take down agencies, governments, and financial networks tied into the very architecture of national security. By early 2025, any mention of Marissa's name had become taboo in official circles. The FBI would neither confirm nor deny her status. The NSA claimed she was never formally employed. Interpol refused to say whether she was being sought internationally. She had become a phantom, and that suited her just fine. But others weren't as comfortable with the silence. 2 independent journalists from the Chesapeake Globe, a digital outlet known for exposing military corruption, tried to reopen the story. They filed FOIA requests, tracked Marissa's known associates, and even retraced her last known travel routes using open-access surveillance. 2 weeks later, both men were found dead, carbon monoxide poisoning. Their laptops were gone, phones scrubbed, cameras wiped. No official investigation was opened, and the local coroner? He retired the next day. In March 2025, a former CIA logistics officer named Harrison Mott appeared on a darknet message board offering information in exchange for sanctuary. He claimed to have intel on a woman who stole classified cartel data and faked her own disappearance. He didn't use Marissa's name. He didn't have to. Before any journalist could contact him, Mott vanished from all known accounts. A week later, a blurry photo circulated, allegedly showing him boarding a Gulfstream jet at a private airstrip in Cyprus. It was reportedly chartered by a shell company linked to a French ex-military contractor. Mott was gone, but someone had paid to make sure he stayed quiet or worked for them. Some believe he joined Marissa. Others say he was silenced before he could find her. Many believe the $6.2 million Marissa stole was still in circulation, moved offshore, funneled through ghost accounts, turned into cryptocurrency. But a confidential leak from an Estonian crypto exchange in early May revealed something astonishing. A dormant wallet, created the same month Marissa vanished, had transferred exactly $6.2 million worth of Monero into a wildlife conservation fund in Namibia under an anonymous foundation name, the White Coral Initiative. The fund had no directors, no traceable board, just two mission statements. 1. Preserve what the system discards. 2. Protect those who no longer trust protection. To this day, no one knows who manages the account, but there's one telling sign. Every security protocol used to shield the fund mirrors NSA infrastructure. Marissa hadn't just disappeared. She had redistributed the entire fortune. In July, a grainy CCTV capture from a ferry terminal in Tangier, Morocco showed a woman with familiar gait. Slight limp, small-build red hoodie, backpack slung over one shoulder. She bought a one-way ticket to the Canary Islands, paid in cash. What stood out wasn't just her appearance. It was the way she moved, like someone watching every reflection, every angle, every exit. She was alone, but never unguarded. Before boarding, she paused, looked directly into a camera, and, for a split second, smiled. A tiny, almost imperceptible smirk, as if to say, "I'm still ahead." Then out of nowhere, a new post appeared on an obscure coding forum. The same handle, Red Herring 21, time-stamped exactly 365 days after Marissa's last known location was detected. The message: she left the door open, but only for those who know the passphrase. The rest will keep chasing shadows, and she'll keep moving. No one responded. No one had to. The passphrase, many believe, refers to a memory embedded in an old communication protocol, something only her son Nathan would understand, something not even the FBI could crack. As the dust settles and the years pass, Marissa Cole becomes less a fugitive and more a symbol, not of theft, not of crime, but of resistance. She didn't take millions to live large. She didn't disappear to hide. She exposed one of the most powerful, well-connected criminal empires in modern history, and revealed the cracks in the systems meant to protect us. She didn't just slip through the cracks. She dug a tunnel under them. And what scares the cartel and the government the most isn't what she took, it's what she still has. 6 months later, a message appeared on the dark web, encrypted, hidden inside a metadata string from a pirated copy of a gardening documentary, buried where no one but a certain type of mind would even think to look. It read, "If you're reading this, then I'm still ahead. Some truths aren't meant to be whispered. They're meant to be broadcast. You won't find me in shadows. You'll find me in the signals between them. And with that, she was gone, in a quiet mountain village in southern Ecuador. Locals talk about a reclusive American woman who moved in 2 years ago. She's polite, fluent in Spanish, and always pays in cash. They say she helps at the local medical clinic and keeps mostly to herself, except when she visits the library, where she rents outdated computer manuals and never returns them. She doesn't own a car. She doesn't have a phone. And she wears a red hoodie on market days. The townspeople just call her La Senora del Rio, the lady by the river. No one asks questions. No one dares. After Marissa's escape, several cartel operations across the Southeast began to crumble, not in dramatic raids or flashy arrests, but quietly. Banks suddenly shut down offshore accounts without explanation. 2 poor inspectors in Tampa resigned. A circuit court judge in Biloxi recused himself from every narcotics case. The reason? No one knows. But those who were watching realized a strange pattern. Every single name connected to the files Marissa stole started to disappear from public record. Not just resignations, full data wipes, no digital footprints, no LinkedIn accounts, no campaign finance history, just silence, as if someone or something was scrubbing them from the system. A controlled purge. By the spring of 2026, La Cuna Blanca had been reduced to a shell of its former self. A combination of internal purges, financial blockades, and sudden disconnections in their import routes crippled their ability to operate. What investigators couldn't understand was how it all fell apart, without a single confirmed whistleblower. But those who'd studied Marissa's methodology knew the answer. She hadn't just stolen money. She'd weaponized data. Every movement she made, every escape route, every deception, all of it led to one purpose: collapse the system from within. Back in Oregon, Nathan Cole, now going by a different name, was seen entering an unlisted cabin retreat outside Ashland. Surveillance footage showed him carrying a small duffel bag and what looked like an encrypted satellite phone. He stayed for 3 days. No one saw him arrive. No one saw him leave. And the cabin had no phone line, no Wi-Fi, and no visible address. What makes this interesting? A neighbor told a local real estate agent they spotted a woman in a red hoodie on the porch the following night. She was laughing. Months later, a single encrypted voice file appeared on a disused Tor address. The audio was filtered, distorted, but unmistakably female. It was short, just over 1 minute. They told me to stay quiet. They told me I couldn't fight back. They told me I'd be hunted if I ever stood up. I'm not hiding anymore. I'm building something new, not with guns, not with violence. With truth, they can erase records, but they can't erase what people remember. To those still watching, I'm not your problem anymore. I'm your consequence. Then silence. The page vanished 24 hours later. The audio file was deleted from all mirrors, and the server hosting it was physically destroyed in a data center fire in Jakarta. To this day, Marissa Cole is still listed as missing. No arrest warrants, no official charges, no formal acknowledgement by any government agency. But those in the know, the analysts, the handlers, the field agents who used to be her colleagues, they understand. She didn't just vanish. She left a message that a single person, armed with knowledge, patience, and conviction, can bring a multi-billion-dollar empire to its knees. That systems built on corruption are more fragile than they seem, and that sometimes justice doesn't wear a badge. Sometimes it wears a red hoodie. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe to Untold Crime Vaults, and share this video with someone who loves unsolved mysteries.